I have a different question today because I'm really curious. I've been hearing from multiple sources that people really feel like the market is shifting. So I want to hear from you guys who are like in the field selling. If you had to summarize the last 2 months of the year, like the first 2 months that we've just gone through, how would you say your real estate business is? I want to hear how is your business? What's your like summary of what's been going on? And I want to see if we have any consistencies before we have this conversation that we're about to have.
I would say that it's been very competitive still, very much a kind of a continuation of what a lot of last year was, of offers going very high above asking price, in its present condition, guaranteeing above appraisal value, guaranteeing earnest money, all the things that we have to do in order to win in a multiple offer situation is continuing to happen. I'm still seeing double-digit offers on a lot of properties, and not just in the 200 and 300s. I've seen it in the 400s and 500s as well. It's still, like I said, just a really competitive market out there. And I think the biggest difference that I see so far this year is that inventory isn't keeping up. Last year, the houses would sell really fast, but they would come on the market just as fast. This year, I'm not seeing that. So I think longer periods of time go by before, another property that checks all the boxes really comes on the market. So.
Cool. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else have any feelings in it? And it's okay if you're experiencing something different than CJ is, because we all have a different type of client that we work with. The question was for anybody that just hopped on. I want to get a good summary of how you feel like the market is right now. If you were going to just explain to somebody, hey, the last 60 days of my business, this is what I have been feeling. Nobody can talk today. This is going to be on. Oh, sorry, Chris. Are you talking, Chris? We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yes. For me, I've gotten a couple of unique deals together: a VA financing, a contingency. So it is a little bit different than it was last year. For what I've been doing, but I've been doing a lot of out properties, not a lot of residential in town stuff. So, that.
Yeah,
I'm never surprised it's different.
Correct. Yep, there's a lot of creative deals going on. I personally have one right now. Some cousins are purchasing some land, and they are selling their house to a company that's going to let them rent it back. So they're non-contingent to be able to buy the land. And we've been talking about this for probably 6 months, and they keep popping back up. We're ready, but she's pregnant and they're not going to sell their house and have a potential of being homeless. That just wasn't an option. But their motivation finally got high enough that we're getting creative. And so what I started, because I have people pop by my office every once in a while, and it's like, hey, I have a question about this deal because it's weird. And if I had $1 for every time that somebody came by my office in the last 60 days and said, I have a question about this offer because it's weird, I would have a lot of dollars. Because what I think is the market is starting to shift, and we have really smart agents that are figuring that out and finding ways to do creative deals, just like what you said, Chris. It's getting creative, and I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon.
So Rebecca, can you explain a little bit more of what you mean by the market is shifting? Shifting in what direction?
I don't know.
Yeah.
So how can you tell that there's a shift then? What's changing?
I can personally tell there's a couple of things shifting. So every month they come out with what's called the market trends, and you get to see average list of sales price. You also get to see commission rates and how many houses are coming off and on the market. The amount of homes that are being sold is still very consistent. There hasn't been a big drop one way or the other. What is changing, and what's interesting that Lisa brought this up on Monday, is last month, the average, and here's my big disclaimer, you guys, we don't set commissions. We're not talking about any of that. We are talking about averages in the market. Don't sue me. Don't share this. So what we saw is last month, for the first time in 2 years, the average commission rate in our MLS was 2.7%. It's always been right around 3, 2.9, 2.8, and we saw it drop to 2.7. So here's what I'm wondering, and why I wanted to start asking some of these questions is I think people are doing a lot of off-market deals. I think that's where the shift is, because CJ, you're right. We're not seeing the inventory come online, but the deals are still happening. So that tells me that agents are finding the buyers themselves. They're door knocking, they're putting deals together. They're doing like what I just did, where we sold to a rental company and nobody even got to see this little $250,000 house in Lee Summit. So I think that's the shift that we're seeing, is agents are starting to function in a way that they have to go out and find the deals for their clients, or there's no deal to be had.
I have a question. And I don't know, so that's why I'm asking. Since each office has the opportunity, which is just fairly new, to have an in-house exclusive, is that actually doing more good or more harm?
What do you
Does the good outweigh the bad?
I really personally, I think it could go either way, but I'm curious, how do you guys feel about office exclusive? Here's my first question. Let's answer this. Who actually looks at the office exclusive list?
We try to look at it weekly, but
I look at it all the time, daily, every day. And I'm calling the agents that I know that typically use it and see if they have anything that they haven't just got on the list yet. If that actual piece of, I forgot to fill out the form, I'm calling those agents. Do you have anything? Do you have anything? Do you have anything? And sometimes they do.
Cool.
And yet I think we're probably the minority. I think in an office our size, I would say the majority, I would say over half is not looking at it.
I 100% agree. I think the majority probably don't even know about it.
Right. Correct.
But
And
that's the 80-20.
that's exactly right, Chris. And here's what's exciting though. If we could get the 20% of people in our office that do 80% of the business to just throw it on the spreadsheet, how much more access would we have to all of that? I know not all of you are up here in the Northland, but our office in the Northland does, it does 20% of the business in the Northland runs through this office. So that tells me if we really could all offer our clients, hey, 20% of the houses that are coming online, I can get you in front of first, and it's totally legal and it's fine. That's an amazing way that we can help our clients. And Lee Summit, I know you guys are kind of the same down there too. There's a lot of inventory that's coming on from all of these big teams that we tend to keep inside of our teams. And if we would branch out a little bit, I think it would be a huge value to our clients. So I guess the question is for the people on this call, what's the process need to look like that we can all start using that a little bit better? Let's talk about it. Here's what I think. I think, Chris, if we put a deal together using the office exclusive, throw it on the Facebook. Hey, CJ, thanks so much for adding your listing to the office exclusive. We were able to do a deal. And I think it's just some positive reinforcement from all of our agents that this is a great place to find inventory and a good place to put your inventory, because it can be a win for everybody. It doesn't just have to be a win for the buyers.
Because I see agents already doing that, in that they're reaching out on the KW Facebook and saying, hey, I need this, or they'll say, I've got this coming up, and everybody's connecting that's watching the KW Facebook.
Yeah.
It could be just trying to think outside the box a little bit. It could be something that every Tuesday, there's just a quick slide up there in our team meeting, just saying, hey, we have 8 in-house exclusive. We don't have to talk about them all or anything like that, but it's just like a reminder.
I love that. I love that.
Good idea.
Weekly. That's an awesome idea.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Not saying you're on a roll today, but you're on a roll today. That's really cool. So, Anybody else have anything to add to that conversation? I know a couple other people hopped on. We just asked, how are you feeling about the market in the last 60 days? Because we're about to have a conversation around commission and objections to commission. And I think having a better understanding of how everyone feels in the market will help us like lead into that. Anybody like busier than they've ever been and it's super exciting?
I'm the same as I was this time last year.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm about the same.
perfect. Felicia, your box lit up, but we didn't hear you say anything. Are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Yeah, I'm busier than ever. Just said to Chris, I'm like, I think I'm gonna need help sometime soon.
Man, if only I had an office of like 10 new agents that just came on looking for people to learn from. Do with them. Okay, so I don't know how many of you were able to watch Gary's vision speech from Family Reunion, but he did talk a lot about the fact that they're expecting things to be very much the same as they were last year. So if you're feeling like this is kind of a repeat, it's all the same. What they think could change that a little bit is interest rates, and that's just going to be client education. One of the scariest things for people, and this may not be new information to anybody on this call, and yet I think it's helpful to hear it repeated. What can happen whenever someone's interest rate goes from 3.5%, which you got them qualified for in the fall, and then they call you in the spring, hey, I'm ready to buy. That can affect someone's buying power here in Kansas City by $30,000 to $40,000. So not a bad time to be calling and resetting some expectations, because if we remember, we want to be their economist of choice. So my buyers that I didn't get under contract in the fall, I need to be calling them and letting them know, hey guys, some funky stuff going on. I'm still really excited about the market. We have this amazing office exclusive that we're all going to be using now. And there's some opportunities, and I want to make sure that you're educated. So those can be really good database calls. I'm not saying they're going to be the most fun, but it's a way to keep people educated and build that trust. So without further ado, let's talk about commission and commission reductions and what we're seeing in the industry. I said before, some of you hopped on, we look at market trends that come out every month for the multiple listing system. And after Lisa pointed out on Monday that she was feeling like every conversation she was having on listings, somebody had come in and cut their commission. I'm like, let's look into this. What do you know, Lisa? You're absolutely right. Commissions last month, average in the multiple listing system, were lower than well, Stephanie says they're lower than they've ever been. They're lower than what I could see for the last 2 years. So the average commission rate of all of the transactions done in our multiple listing system is 2.7%. That tells me that there's some people doing some stuff off market, and there's a lot of commission changes that maybe weren't happening. Well, they weren't happening last month, or we wouldn't have been at 2.7% for an average. So the conversation that I would really like to have with all of you, and it's going to be way more fun if we can all have a conversation and not just Rebecca talking and smiling at you. What I have found is, in the absence of value, price becomes an issue. So whenever we're talking about pitching ourselves to sellers and doing a presentation to help them understand why you're worth whatever commission rate you want to charge, I don't care if it's 2.5, 3.5, 4.5%, doesn't matter. When you're having a conversation with someone and explaining value, if they have a problem with the price, it's because you have a problem pitching your value. So I want us to kind of like blank slate and wipe all of this away. And I want to talk about the different ways that we can provide value to our sellers. Because what I'm guessing has happened, and this is, I was thinking about this ever since Monday, and Lisa and I kind of had this conversation, is my value is the same as it was before other people started cutting commission. And what I think has probably happened post-pandemic is all of these people are getting their license. And now there's so many more agents to work with 2 or 3 deals, just their friends and family, right? If let's say we had 5,000 agents join the board. Now, if only those 5,000 agents work with their immediate friends and family and they're not really working their database, that's still a lot of deals that when my cousin calls, I'm willing to reduce my commission. So we, as the full-time real estate agents, have to be a lot more polished, because they could either list with their first cousin CJ, who's going to do it for 1.5%, or I can put on an amazing presentation and convince someone of my value, but I'm probably going to have to up my game a little bit. Does that make sense? I don't think it's anything that we're necessarily doing incorrectly. I think we've got to level up because there's so many more people playing the game. Anybody have
So
any that?
that makes sense. And I'd also add in investors, because they're licensed and they're coming in and, you know, paying cash, waiving the buyer's agent commission, things like that. So that would add into that formula as well.
It is, yeah. And one of the things I'm taking coaching skills camp right now, yesterday and today. And one of the things that they advise is whenever we're talking with each other, giving advice to each other, that we want to have the mindset that I'm $100,000 investor in your business, Tyler. If I had invested $100,000 and been successful this year, what advice would I have? And so as I was thinking about that, I'm like, the advice that I would have for everybody on the call and myself as I'm growing my business is let's get really, really clear on our value and why I have enough value to compensate for the 3% commission that I want when CJ is going to charge 1.5. And so what I was thinking, and everybody's going to have to participate or I'm going to feel really silly with this. Let's make a list on the whiteboard. Can you guys see Matt's whiteboard? Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. I want to make a list on the whiteboard of all the ways that we provide value to our sellers. Okay, so I'm going to start writing and I'm going to be turned around. So that means you guys have to talk. And this is going to be really brainstorming. I don't need this to be like amazing value. I want to get a whole list of things up here of ways we provide value to our sellers. So hit me with it.
Education and experience.
Education, experience. Okay, keep going.
Market stats and knowledge. Okay, I did 4. Somebody else is next.
Oh, say that again.
Nothing. Go ahead.
Relationships with other brokers or agents.
Yes. And Taylor, how would that be a value?
Getting, they were working with a buyer and getting their offer accepted above anybody else's because we have a relationship with the listing agent.
Right. Good. What other value do we provide our sellers? We give them education, experience, market statistics, market knowledge. We have relationships with other agents. Protection.
Knowing,
Good.
What do you have on there again? Because I can't see the board anymore.
Education, experience, market stats, market knowledge, relationships with agents, protection.
Negotiation skills.
Ooh, good.
That negotiation skills.
Exposure to buyers.
Great.
Strength in numbers.
Experience.
I would say commitment as well.
Hey, tell me what you mean by that. If you say to your client, hey, I'm really committed to this. Walk me through how they would feel.
Well, it is kind of just a basic one, but letting them know that you're committed and you know, I think for me is not giving up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Like what we forget sometimes, you guys, is selling a house is really stressful for our clients, whether they want it to be or not. And having somebody on the other end of it, whenever I'm sitting at their kitchen table and I'm like, you guys, we got this. I'm here to support you. They have a lot of anxiety and stress about it. And I think that's a huge one, Skylar. If they know that I'm just as committed to selling their house and finding them a new place to live as they are, there's a lot of value in that actually James Hearn says this and it cracks me up. There's a lot of value in that I can't put on a piece of paper. I have value to you that you're not going to understand from my listing presentation, but you're going to understand from the way that you feel whenever we talk business. And that's a huge value. That's what people pay for. Cool. Okay, let's keep going. What other value do we have that's not up there? I don't know if you guys can see that very well.
Knowing how to help them choose the best offer.
Good. Tyler, that's a really big one. So whenever I'm in a listing appointment and they say something along the lines of, and Lisa, you probably heard this I think is something you brought up. Well, you're gonna have 10 offers on the house. So why do I need to pay you 3%? I want a discount because you don't really even have to do anything other than take pictures. Fair enough. There's some pre-marketing that we're gonna do to get all these offers. We'll have a conversation about what that looks like. But Tyler, whenever you get 10 offers on the house and you're really excited, do you think there's gonna be an air of overwhelm? Like, are you gonna feel overwhelmed? How are you gonna choose? Do you know which agents have been in the business? Do you know which agents have a fall through ratio that 50% of the contracts that they write go away? You can start to create some real value around what that looks like, because that is something that you have that they don't have. So that's a really good one, Tyler.
Another one I would say is like knowing which kind of selling strategy is best for their circumstances, whether it is going on the market or whether it is the office exclusive or selling to an investor, or like the rent back, like your cousins, Rebecca.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Tyler, that's something that I think you probably do a really good job setting up in the beginning, whenever you're booking a listing appointment, to tell the people, hey, listen, Bridget, whenever I'm at the house, I want to go over a few of the different selling strategies to figure out which one is best for you, because they only know one strategy, and that's to put the house online for sale by owner and then talk to all the agents that come through. But I'm setting myself up in the beginning that there's some different value adds and there's some different strategies depending on what they want. I like it. Anything else we're missing on the board? I don't see anything on there at all yet here, and I'll come close. I'll screenshot this and send it out to everybody. So my thoughts are, whenever you look at this list of what some of the top agents in our market center find a value that they're presenting to their sellers, are we actually talking about that on listing appointments? Or are we just going in and looking at the house and telling them we're excited? Because if I'm a seller and PJ sits in front of me and says, here's all the education that I provide you. Here's how we're going to review your offers. Here's the market knowledge that I have. I have all of these relationships with agents. I'm committed to selling it. We're going to sit down and review all the offers in person. I have negotiating skills because here's my average list of sales price. Here's what I can do for my buyers. I'm going to expose you to this whole set of like, do you understand where we're providing so much value that whenever their cousin comes in and says, I'll do it for 1.5%, it's not really even a question? Anybody have any thoughts or ahas around the conversation? Anything that we should go deeper in?
I understand what you're saying, because obviously you have to show value, and I feel like personally, like I'm definitely showing value, which is why they say they want to go with me, and why the last two have said, I want to give you the last option because we really want to go with you. We like you, we feel connection. And yet I still feel, and maybe this is just me, but I still feel in this market, the bottom line is how much more money they can put in their pockets, even though I'm telling them my game plan is to get you more than what you even said you wanted to be out the gate. So I'll be more than paying for my own commission. And I don't know, these last two people, like I said, they both come back and given me the final chance. And I'm still starting to just second guess, I guess. So and I've asked them, I'm like, okay, if they're giving up that commission, what else are they giving up for you? You know, then I've circled back around and I've said all kinds of things. So I don't know. It's still tough. I think it's really easy to say that, to just fall back. You're not showing enough value, but I think the market, I think that these sellers are sometimes pretty bottom dollar.
They are. I agree.
So,
Yeah.
so
Oh.
I think too that they're investigating like Open Door and these commercials they see online. And I think that they are, and what they really need to know is that they're showing you these numbers, but they don't have to stick by them. Like Open Door does not have to close when they give you an offer on the house. It's in the fine print. And so, you know, I think that there's in the, you know, on the boring TV and on the internet and in the commercials that you're seeing, there's opportunity for people to gather information, and they're not seeing the fine print of that information. And so they're not really comparing apples to apples. And so it's about drilling down and asking the question.
It is.
Right? So asking really good questions when you're hit with that about why, you know, what in my presentation makes you feel like we should, you know, look at a commission reduction? Did you, in the other agents that you've talked with, what did they share with you that, you know, felt that you would net more money with them?
Right.
That you would ask me to do that reduction?
I love that, Chris. And what did someone else share with you that made you feel like it was okay for your family to have a lesser value? Does that make sense? Like there's some strategic questions.
That's the question I was after and I wasn't coming up with. Yeah.
Yeah. What about their presentation made you feel better about lessening the value that I could give? And I'm really curious, what do the numbers look like? Because hopefully by this point, you've trusted me and you've seen all of my experience and we can have an honest conversation. I think that's really good. And another thing, Lisa, we should probably visit this one either Monday or Thursday next week. There was a couple month period when I first started as a listing agent where I lost out. Like I would leave and they'd tell me yes, and then I'd come back to and like, nope, we're not signing paperwork. We already signed with somebody else. And I just had to get really good at closing at the appointment with my paperwork. We'd go over the seller's estimated net sheet. And I knew if I left that darn house and they didn't have a signature on something that they were going to list with the next guy with a lower commission rate. And so if that's what we've started to experience, that people are interviewing multiple agents, maybe we need to have a scripting call about how do you close at the initial appointment. We're not even going to have a conversation.
Good. That's good. I really like that. That's my takeaway from today's call. I like that a lot.
This is Carol. I do too, Rebecca. I think that's where it is, because Lisa, one of the things that we were talking about that didn't get brought up is that when you gave your value proposition, you were told twice, they've offered me exactly the same thing. There is no difference in what you are telling me versus what I am hearing from other agents. So although we say we have a value proposition, if someone else is offering it. The other thing I'll throw out there is last week when we did this, I went out and I looked at every listing that KW03 has on MLS, and I broke it down. I am seeing consistently St. Joe is at 5% consistent. I've seen 4 huge teams in this office discount. So you tell me these agents who are pros giving the value proposition, and yet they are discounting. It's not just discounting. There's more to it. And I think, Rebecca, is what you said. You've got to go in there and get the listing before you leave, because the next one's going to get it.
Right. Right. And there too, guys, there's some scripts on the backside of it that we can talk with and maybe think about this for our conversation next week as well. If my value, and we all know it's easier to sell a house right now than it's ever been. We're not saying it's not. And I think sometimes when we go in and we try to overcomplicate it to the seller and not own it, yeah, it's easy to sell a house right now. I'm going to put it online. I'm going to get a bunch of calls and I'm going to do some other work, but that the actual selling and getting the offer isn't the hard part. So we've got to make sure that they understand that the value's on the buy side. Who do you want to work with on the buy side? And there's, if I close them and we're signing the listing documents, always focused on what we're going to do in the future and working on that, that negative present and the positive future that Matt always talks about, I think that there's some value there as well. So.
Hey, Rebecca, I know we're up against time on this. I just wanted to add this last thing in real quick. For as far as this goes, anything that I see publicly is the buyer's agent commission and the transaction broker commission, not the listing agent's commission. So, you know, I mean, 95%, at least 97% of my business is buyers. I rarely do listings. And so I always wonder, is the listing agent taking 3% and offering a buyer's agent 2.5%, 2%, something like that? So maybe they do get their 3%, and offering the buyer's agent because they feel the buyer's agent's doing less.
Right.
Because there's 20 of us for their house. Just something that, because we were talking about it.
It's all interesting. It really is. You guys, thank you for being on today and participating. I got a lot of value out of this. I always learn something. So have a great Thursday, and we can continue this conversation next week if we want to.
I
Thank
think
you.
it's just relevant.